Okay, we're going to go ahead and take item 13 up first, and so we'll hear from staff.
Chair, Commissioner Liaison Amber, do you wish to entertain a Q&A at 5:03?
Oh, thank you for reminding me. Given this potentially could be a late evening, going into this, for starters, unless there's any opposition, I would like to hold the Q&A on everything but the item 23, which will have a more robust discussion, is hold it to 5 commissioners at 5 minutes? 3 minutes, yeah, that will keep it down. So let's go 5 at 3. Any opposition to modifying our rules just to get out of here at a decent hour? Okay, all right, I didn't hear any opposition. We'll go ahead and keep the Q&A to 5 commissioners at 3 minutes. All right, thank you. Staff, please. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Rose with the Housing and Planning Department. This rezoning is for 4407 Merle Drive. It consists of a platted lot and contains a single-family residence and is zoned LONP for Limited Office Neighborhood Plan District. There are residences along both sides of Merle Drive, zoned SF3, as well as office and commercial uses to the north at the intersection with eastbound Ben White Boulevard. The applicant has filed a request to rezone this property from LONP to SF3NP with the intent of either building a 2-family residence or a duplex on the property. The staff is recommending the applicant's request because the lot meets the intent of the SF3 district. It fronts on a residential portion of Merle Drive, and rezoning would be consistent with the uses that are established to the east, south, and west of the property. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
The Chair will now hear from the applicant, Ms. Victoria Hasse.
Good evening, Commissioners. Victoria Hasse with Thrower Design on behalf of the landowner. So this is the site. The subject tract is maybe a little challenging to see, but it's the little black outlined polygon in the map in front of you. It's on the southeast quadrant, I guess you would say, of this Imagine Austin Activity Center. It is in proximity to transit and existing transit bus stops and service lines. Next slide. So the site's a little over 1/4 acre, and it has LONP zoning today. The request is for SF3, which is consistent with the neighborhood plan. The desire is to develop the site with a 2-family use, a main house and an ADU. And the site doesn't have much frontage. It's about 60 feet of frontage, so all that could be achieved here is 1 house and an ADU. There are 8 heritage trees on the site, which does not make it conducive to a commercial development, and is thus the reason why it's being requested for SF3 development. Again, the request is consistent with the neighborhood plan, and that's about it. I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the opposition, Ms. Catherine Ware. Ms. Ware, you'll have 5 minutes.
I'm sorry, you said 5 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
I can't tell who's talking.
Yes, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Catherine Weir. I live at 4410 Merle Drive. If I stand on the front corner of my property and take 32 steps that direction, I'm on the corner of the property in question. I see the staff's recommended this zoning change, but they don't live on Merle Drive. Have any of you been to Merle Drive? I wouldn't have expected so. It's only 2 blocks long. As she said, the first street east of Manchac, going south off Ben White access. I'm in the first block, crosses red. It used to dead end. And then there was a vacant lot there, and 20 homes got built on that vacant lot. You can imagine what that did for the traffic on our little 2-block street. This is a 1950s neighborhood, carports, no vaulted ceilings, very modest homes. There are 5 homes across from me, 6 on my side. It's only 11 streets, a very short block. The corner at Red, 4414, is already multiple properties. They built 2 residences where there had been a home and a front yard. That's a short-term rental. They're so much fun. My favorite group was the group that showed up at 2 a.m., multiple cars, drunken people, a boat on a trailer, and they spent the rest of the night arguing over how to get that trailer with a boat into the driveway that's located right by a power pole. Nobody got much sleep that night. The next block, the other block, will have a short-term rental soon. We've received a notice from the city about that at 4516, so they're going to have fun in that block too. On my block at 4413, directly across this way, that property sold a year ago, and they've been working on renovating the original house, putting in a new yard. Now, apparently they haven't told the city anything because we've gotten no notices, but they've told all the neighbors they plan to build another residence in the back of that lot as well. Keep in mind, there are 5 houses, so that's a double one there. Now we come to 4407. That property has been listed on Zillow for months already for over $3 million. Keep in mind, it's 2 properties away from Ben White. But they're going to sell it for $3 million, over $3 million, and if you've got that kind of money, they're happy to put 2 structures. They even depict a swimming pool. Won't that be swank? What this is really about is that they paid an outrageous fortune for that property this spring, and they want to pack as much onto it as they can and get as rich as they can off of that property. And if you're telling yourselves that all of this is building community, you should not be telling yourself that. In the past 2 years, out of just my block, 11 houses, 4 sets of people have moved out, have left that neighborhood, 3 of them out of total disgust for what is happening in that neighborhood. They moved to Kyle, even Port Aransas. They did not want to live through the construction disruption and the ridiculous architecture, the total change in the character of this community. You have the power. I know, clearly they're not looking for this to improve affordable housing in the area, not with a swimming pool on the property, and not for sale for $3 million. You're not building communities, you're tearing apart neighborhoods. You have the power to just say no.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the applicant for a 3-minute rebuttal.
Good evening, Commissioners. Victoria again, Victoria Haase. So the site today has a single-family house and a detached garage. And I guess during the neighborhood planning process or sometime around there, the site received LO zoning, which was inconsistent with the development that it's been on the site for several decades. And what we're asking for is a rezoning, a downzoning, to build back another single-family house, but this time with an ADU in addition. So it's going to be consistent with what is on the street today. Single-family houses, some of the houses have ADUs. So we feel like this is a request that also, again, is in alignment with the neighborhood plan, with the future land use map, and we respectfully request your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That concludes the speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you. A motion to close public hearing. Commissioner Azar, let me get back to the room. seconded by Commissioner Anderson. Oh, sorry. Didn't have my room view up. Okay, so let's go and take a vote on closing the public hearing. Those on the dais? All right, that's everyone, and that's all green, so that's 10-0. Okay, thank you. Well, so we're at 5 commissioners, 3 minutes each. Who wants to start us off? Any questions? Commissioner Muchthaler?
Sorry. Question is for opposition speaker. I want to understand your concerns a little better. The property is currently zoned LO, and if I'm correct, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that's going to be office commercial. So it's currently got zoning to put an office on that property. And if the concern was the traffic and the changing in the area, I guess I'm trying to understand why the SF3 request from the applicant is objectionable for you. So, yes, ma'am, you have opportunity to answer that. I just want to understand your
Yes,
concern
ma'am, you're
better.
our only opposition speaker, so you will,
I don't know why the previous owner had that zoning. He did not have an office. There is a garage back there that has a side door, so it looks like somebody, you could finish it out and live there if you wanted an ADU. There what hasn't been, he had lived there longer. I've lived there 20 years, come February. He had moved in a number of years before that. I don't know why it's zoned as it is. He did not run a business. Is another residence or two, what were residents on the street on my side. One's
So,
law office.
I
I don't
just-
know why it's zoned that way.
I want to make sure you understand that without the applicant coming and requesting a change, they could put an office and retail there. That's what it would be zoned for, and they
They
wouldn't even have to
could.
come before us or request permission for that, which it seems like that would create more problem than staying with the SF3.
I
even
don't
if-
believe
Even if it is
so.
a different caliber of home.
They're going to tear down the existing house, which means building an entirely new one, and a secondary property. And keep in mind, they're looking for more than $3 million out of this property. Clearly, this is not just a little grandma cottage planned for the back, especially with a swimming pool depicted on Zoom. Their intentions are not to simply build a little secondary little structure there.
Thank you.
all right, commissioners, any further questions? Commissioner Shea, and then followed by Vice Chair Hempel.
What questions for the applicant? So you mentioned that there's heritage trees on this, and how many?
There's 9 trees total, 8 of them are heritage.
And so what area is really left to even build?
Those 8 heritage trees are in the front setback off of the street, and then the one tree that's not heritage, but it is protected, is at the rear of the property. So it's quite a bit of frontage that's taken up because of heritage trees and critical root zones.
So from what I'm looking at, it's kind of a largish lot, but equivalent of a what size infill lot would you say this is more like, if you look at what you can develop? Yeah, of usable, like is this more like a 6,000 square foot lot, a 5,000, by the time you factor what we can't use because of the heritage trees?
That's a good question. I mean, the lot is just a little over a quarter of an acre right now. It's 0.27 acres. That might be a better question for Ron to answer.
Commissioners, Ron Thrower. Looking at the tree survey that we had, and I wished I'd brought one, but I'd say about a third of the property is going to be encumbered by heritage trees in the critical root zones.
Okay, and the intent here is, I mean, I guess with this big, you can build duplex, house with ADU. I mean, is the intent here just to build something like that, or is it a duplex, or is it,
House and an ADU is what we've been told, yes.
okay, and I don't know where this $3 million, I mean, is that, is it in the intent to,
This is the first we've heard of this price, but, you know, I think we all know the price is whatever the market will bear. Personally, $3 million, I don't see it. but
yeah,
that's just
and
me.
from what I've seen, I mean, and I'm in real estate, that's not even close to what I think the value of this is. It's probably, you know, more than triple of what it is, even, maybe probably even worth even less, but, okay,
Great, thank you.
thanks.
All right, Vice Chair Hempel?
Yes, while I'm sitting at my computer, I was able to pull up the Zillow listing. And I know Zillow isn't completely accurate for understanding prices, but it is on Zillow for $3,088 or something. And they do have the plans drafted up, 7-bedroom, 8-bath home. This may be a question for staff about the short-term rental process and what's the state of that in Austin right now? Like if this home was built, then do they then apply for short-term rental and are the neighbors noticed?
Regarding the short-term rental, yes, they would be required to register with the city, but that's really all I know about that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any further questions? We have a couple more spots. Commissioner Thompson?
I have a question for staff. If I look at it, it seems like it's sort of catty-cornered from land that's zoned GR, V, and P. So if they build a $3 million home here, or a $5 million home on a $3 million lot, would that house then trigger compatibility for the GRV land?
So the property next door is LO, is that directly to the north is LO, so yes, it would. If it is rezoned to SF3, then yes, that would trigger compatibility as it relates to the property next door, which is LONP.
Okay, and is there anything that that a developer could do to sort of waive that right to compatibility in the
Yes.
future, to just sort of?
There is the LO zone property owner could request or could ask for a waiver to compatibility with a site plan application.
Okay, but, so they would have to ask, so how does that work? They ask the property owner or they ask the city?
They would have to file an application with the city. I mean, that assumes that there is a site plan application that is active or is submitted to the city for the property to the north, or I suppose the property that's across the street that's zoned LO. I think that is developed with an office, but yeah, if there was a site plan, yes, this SF3 lot would trigger compatibility, and there would be a compatibility waiver process that they could request as part of a site plan.
Okay. I guess I have a question for Mr. Thrower or Ms. Hussey.
Ron Thrower here.
So would you be willing at all to have some sort of restrictive covenant that said that you would support a waiver for compatibility in the future?
We'd have to get with our client on that specific issue, but I think it's also important to note that today there's an existing house on the property, and even though it's zoned commercial, that house alone triggers compatibility today. So rezoning is not changing the compatibility matter.
Okay. But if that house were to be used as an office, then it would not.
If that's a question, then the answer is yes.
Okay, no more questions.
All right, one more spot. Do you have a motion? I think it's our, Commissioner Czar first. Commissioner Shea, it was a tie. You guys
I'm going to
do
make a motion to move forward with staff recommendation.
you have a second? Commissioner Shea, do you want to speak to your motion?
I think some of the concerns that we've heard today are very real, and I think neighborhoods around the city are facing those kind of pressures. But having said that, I think Commissioner Merschalder had a really good point that if we want to manage those issues in some ways, zoning to single family will protect the neighborhood from those pressures, because since office and commercial can have their own rules, then can cause certain concerns. So I think that is one reason why we should support this, in addition to the fact that it is something that generally seems to be supported and is largely in line with the existing neighborhood plan. One last thing I'll say on this is, I really hope that we can find a way to not have a lot of housing next to our highways, and I know that's something that we have to work with, but also seeing some of the limitations on this site with the heritage trees, to Commissioner Shea's point, really apart from where the structures are today, it's very hard to expand the footprint or create something else. So considering all those limitations, both for the developer and thinking what would support the neighborhood's needs, it makes sense to support this.
All right, Commissioner speaking against? Commissioner Thompson?
So I can't support it just because I think it will trigger compatibility on a property, that's got much more intensive zoning. It's within a quarter mile of a transit station, the Westgate Transit Center. And, I don't like putting lots of housing on or development on access roads. But, hopefully we can have those roads be more environmentally friendly in the future. And, zoning this for sort of luxury, single-family housing now is going to be denying options on other properties. And we just don't need to be expanding the footprint of single-family zoning in Austin right now.
All right, Commissioner speaking in favor? Commissioner Shea?
So I don't know how this property got this zoning as well. I mean, it seems like, oftentimes when properties get annexed, they're just kind of given what something was intended, and if nobody, says no, then it's assigned to it. But we've seen a lot of cases where people have come forward and just said, look, I just want the zoning that fits my use that's been there for so long. And a lot of this is, they've had the right to use this as a house, they've always used it, the patterns have always been there as a house. So I feel like to deny them to continue the use of what it's always been, I don't know. I just don't think it's right. The other thing is, again, this property is highly encumbered. Whoever's living there now has to be a steward of 8 heritage trees on their property. Doing any type of development is going to be difficult anyway. And I think with those trees, it could actually make for a very nice home. Now, as far as for these thoughts of that this could be X millions of dollars, again, it's only what the market can bear. And as of right now, even looking at where the market's at, this is somebody's, giant dream right now, $3 million. So anyway, that's why I support staff.
Okay, those speaking in opposition? Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you, Chair. I guess it's just another great example of really how bad our land development code is. It feels reckless to put compatibility on more land in this city and to just broaden it even wider, but it really highlights our lack of zoning tools. And it's shocking to me that we don't have a good missing middle housing type that we could apply to this property and to countless other properties in the city that's desperate for housing and desperate to allow for more middle income earners to be able to outbid the highest of income earners. We are in an affordability crisis, but every day we fail to act, we pretend like we're not. And I just don't understand how we aren't moving the needle on legalizing more forms of housing in the city.
Thank you. Commissioner speaking in favor? Speaking against? All right, let's go and take a vote. So the motion by Commissioner Czar, seconded by Commissioner Shea to support staff recommendation. Those in the dais in favor, please raise your hand. So that's 4. Let's go and count those virtually. Those in favor, show me your green cards, please. All right, that's 2. All right, those on the dais against? All right, those virtually that are against this motion? All right, give me 1 second. And those abstaining? Okay, so that motion, if I get my numbers right, that fails 6-4-1, is that correct? All right. Any more motions? Commissioner Czar?
I'll speak to it later. I'm going to make a motion to postpone this to our next meeting.
Do you have a second? Second to postpone. I see Commissioner Schneider. I'm going to speak to your motion, Commissioner Czar.
So I'm not sure if we're going to have the votes for this, but I just want to say, I think some of my fellow commissioners, particularly the issues around compatibility or other things, I think those are important issues, and I think we've heard from the applicant that they're willing to consider this, go back to talk to their client and see what can be done to address some of those concerns. So my hope is that, by rather than just moving forward without a recommendation from planning commissioner or voting it down, if we actually postpone it, we can resolve some of those issues. It is asking a lot of a property owner to somehow figure out what to do with their property when they have that many limitations on their site, with compatibility from the adjoining property on one side, actually compatibility from the other side as well, and then not to mention the heritage trees on it. It is kind of a hard place to be, and I agree with what Commissioner Anderson is saying around there are limitations with our code which make these things very hard, but I'm not sure I can penalize an applicant for us having issues with our code. So I don't want to do that. My hope would be that if my fellow commissioners can support this, we can bring it back next time and resolve some of those issues.
All right, any commissioners speaking against postponement? Any speaking, Vice Chair Hempel, you want to speak against this motion?
Yeah, I respect Commissioner Azar's motion in trying to work through a compromise, but the listing on Zillow it says build your own family compound, an insane Airbnb or custom build with a front and or back house. And I just don't see, even if the compatibility was resolved, where it didn't affect the future development to the north, downzoning a property, I just can't be supportive of that, even if we postpone for 2 weeks. So that I'll be voting no on this.
Okay, Commissioner speak in favor? Speak against? Oh, Commissioner Shea, I'm sorry, missed you.
So I think Commissioner Czar, I think the consideration with, what Commissioner Thompson was concerned about, the compatibility. I mean, if that is something that, again, it's something that we've grappled with all the time, especially when we have residences that are triggering compatibility so close to certain corridors or even certain, city centers, certain things like that. But if we had a better code, then we can still allow this to exist and still not hinder the development that wants to be there. So if there is potentially a way that we could consider allowing the development to continue, because, this is disrupted to the pattern that wants to be there right now. If there's a way to allow the pattern of development continue with what's existing zoning is there, then I'd be willing to listen. I think that would be good, then everybody can get what they want. So I'd be supportive of this.
Okay, Commissioners speaking against the motion to postpone. Oh, Commissioner Musteller.
When we looked at the aerial and the zoning, and I wish we could pull that back up, it looked like there were other properties across the street there that are already SF3, and we were going to already hit compatibility based on those properties and not necessarily the zoning on this property for any of the where we would expect to see density, that's already going to kick in. So to Commissioner Anderson's point, there has to be some larger change that allows us to bring in the infill where it needs to be. As far as the STR stuff, I'm very sympathetic to the folks that are in that neighborhood. And again, that speaks to another thing that needs to be addressed at a council level, because the process for STRs is wickedly not regulated and in favor of commercial industry and not affordable housing for people who need places to live. But that's a different issue entirely. So I'm not sure that postponing does it, and I feel that that's kind of, I appreciate what we're trying to do, but I'd rather bring the motion forward again and let it go, because you've already got the compatibility there. You're not getting out of it with the other properties that are already that close in proximity.
All right,
Oh, does that mean would that be a substitute motion?
no,
Or-
you were at the point, you could make a substitute motion.
Okay, so I'll put it out there for consideration. Because of that fact that nothing we do on this property is going to trigger is going to fix that compatibility issue, then I would put back on the table for the other folks to consider to let the applicant have what they're asking for on the SF3, because this property alone isn't triggering it. The one across the street already is.
Okay, wait, I thought, we already voted that down.
Oh,
This is the same motion we denied.
Let's bring it back on the table.
Sorry.
Okay, I don't have a different motion. That somebody
Yeah.
smarter than me has to come up with a different
Yeah,
motion.
that failed. We only got 6 votes on that one. Commissioner Anderson, speaking against? 4 postponement. Okay.
So I appreciate Commissioner Czar doing this, and I like the idea of postponing, if nothing else than just to learn from this process and what we're about to go through. It seems to me 2 amazing things that could happen with compatibility. One, an easy way for property owners to drop compatibility on their property from affecting others. That would be a power for them and something we don't allow to easily do. And so I'm excited to see what comes back to us. And then 2, we still say housing can be incompatible with housing, and it'd be amazing if we didn't say that. So that won't happen with this case, but 2 things to consider, but I'm excited to see this come back and learn from it.
All right, we got one more spot for anyone speaking against postponement. Seeing none, let's go and vote. So this is a motion by Commissioner Czar, seconded by Commissioner Schneider, to postpone this case to our next planning commission meeting, October 25th. So let's go. Those on the dais first, in favor of postponement. That's 4. Those on the screen, in favor of postponement. All right, that's 3. Those against this motion, please raise your hand on the dais. And on the screen, just give me one moment. Let's see, we got, and then, all right. Okay, and those that are abstaining from this item. Okay. So that, let me get my, that's 7-3-1, so that motion passes. So we will hear this back, this will bring back to us on the 25th of October. Thank you. All right. Let's go and move to our next case.